Okay, so we're diving deep today into something pretty fascinating, a script actually for a YouTube podcast that went kind of viral a while back, all about basketball rules.
Yeah, you forwarded it to me, and it's ambitious trying to cover all that ground. I mean, it just shows you how many layers there are to this game that seems so straightforward when you're just watching it.
Right. Okay, so the mission here is to take that overview and, really unpack it for our listeners to tease out the most important stuff and the differences between the NBA, FIBA, NCAA, all the different rule sets, and to bust some myths about these rules that people always seem to get wrong.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with scoring since, got to put the ball in the hoop to win the game.
Right, 1 point for a free throw, 2 points for a shot inside the arc, 3 points for a shot made beyond the arc.
Simple, right?
Well, except that 3-point line is in a different spot depending on which league you're watching.
Okay, so like in the NBA, it's 23.75 feet from the basket.
Exactly. But if you're watching, say, an international game, a FIBA game, that line is closer in at 22.15 feet.
Interesting. I mean, that's not a huge difference, but
It is, though, when you think about it. Like, 16 inches can change how a player approaches those shots and how the team spaces the floor on offense.
oh, that's true. You see a lot more players in FIBA just letting it fly from deep.
Yeah. I mean, when you're closer, why not, right?
Right. And speaking of the three-point line, I learned from this script that the WNBA actually uses the FIBA distance for their games.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. So you could have a player who, is used to that NBA range and then has to adjust.
Interesting how those little details can impact the whole game.
Totally. Okay, so we talked about scoring. How about the structure of the game itself? The script says NBA games are 4 12-minute quarters.
Right, and that's different from FIBA and NCAA games, which are 4 10-minute quarters.
Okay, so 8 fewer minutes in those leagues.
Yeah, that can change fatigue levels and just the whole pace of the game.
Absolutely. And then when the game's tied at the end of regulation, we go to overtime.
5 minutes in the NBA.
And FIBA and NCAA too, according to the script.
Wow. So no matter where you are, those overtime periods are going to be intense.
For sure. And another big factor in the game is the shot clock.
Right. The rule that keeps the offense moving prevents teams from just holding the ball forever.
So in the NBA and FIBA, you have 24 seconds to get a shot off once you have possession.
But in NCAA men's and women's basketball, they get a little more time, 30 seconds.
Okay, so those 6 extra seconds could lead to slower offenses, more time to set up plays.
Yeah, definitely potentially a different style of play in college ball compared to the pros.
So we've got the basics of scoring and timing down. Now let's get into violations.
Oh, yeah, the stuff that can drive fans crazy.
Exactly, starting with traveling. And everyone seems to have an opinion about what a travel is.
Especially with that gather step thing. The script mentions how the NBA is more lenient with those 2 steps after a player gathers the ball.
Can you break that down for us? I always get confused.
Sure, so the gather step is basically that first step a player takes once they have control of the ball.
While they're moving or after they stop dribbling.
Right, and in the NBA, you get 2 more steps after that gather step.
But FIBA is stricter.
Yeah, it's all about when that gather step actually happens.
So that's where all the debate comes from.
Right, like when does a player truly have possession and start those steps? It's a judgment call sometimes.
Makes sense.
Ah.
Okay, another violation everyone knows is the double dribble.
Can't dribble, stop, and then dribble again.
Simple, right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about preventing players from getting a second chance to attack once they've stopped dribbling.
Okay, and then there's carrying or palming the ball,
Yeah.
which the script says is called differently depending on the league.
Yeah, FIBA is stricter on this than the NBA.
So what is carrying exactly?
It's when a player's hand goes under the ball during a dribble, like they're scooping it.
I see.
FIBA wants to keep those dribbles clean. NBA refs might let some stuff slide if it's not too blatant.
Gotcha. And then the last one for now is the backcourt violation.
That's all about preventing teams from stalling in their own half.
So once you get the ball in your backcourt, you have a certain amount of time to get it over the half-court line.
8 seconds in the NBA and FIBA 10 seconds in NCAA.
So if you don't get it over in time, the other team gets the ball.
That's the rule. It keeps the game moving.
Okay, so we've covered scoring, game structure, and violations. Time to talk fouls.
Oh boy, everyone's favorite topic.
Let's start with personal fouls and the classic blocking versus charging debate.
Oh yeah, that one always gets fans yelling at the TV.
So for a defender to get a charge, they have to be set before the offensive player jumps into them?
Exactly. Legally guarding their position before contact is made.
If they move into the player's path after the jump, it's a block.
Right. That's the key difference.
Okay, and then there are flagrant fouls which the script divides into flagrant 1 and flagrant 2.
Right, so flagrant 1 is unnecessary contact, something that goes beyond normal physical play but isn't super dangerous.
So 2 free throws, and the foul team keeps possession.
Exactly. Now, flagrant 2 is a much bigger deal.
That's when the contact is really excessive or dangerous.
Yeah, often leads to an ejection for the player who committed the foul, plus 2 free throws and possession for the other team.
And speaking of fouls in the NBA, you can't forget the hack-a-shack strategy.
Oh yeah, intentionally fouling a bad free throw shooter, hoping they'll miss.
And the NBA has changed the rules a bit to address this.
Yeah, especially in the last 2 minutes of a game.
Now, if you foul someone off the ball intentionally just to stop the clock, the other team gets a free throw and keeps possession.
Right. It's designed to discourage that tactic late in close games.
Makes sense. And then there are technical fouls, which aren't about physical contact, but more about conduct.
Yeah, things like taunting, arguing with refs, delaying the game, basically unsportsmanlike behavior.
The script mentions that Rasheed Wallace holds the NBA record for most technicals in a season with 41.
Wow, that's a lot of technicals.
Shows you got to keep your cool out there. Okay, so let's talk about some of the biggest rule misunderstandings the script mentions.
You mean like the stuff people get wrong all the time?
Exactly, like the clear path foul. What's that all about?
So it's when a player is fouled on a fast break, no one's between them and the basket, and they have a clear chance to score.
I see, and there are specific criteria for it to be a clear path foul.
Right, like the fouled player has to be ahead of the defender who fouled them. They have to have possession of the ball, and there can't be anyone else between them and the basket.
So if it is a clear path foul, what happens?
2 free throws for the fouled player, and their team keeps the ball afterwards.
Mighty. Another area that confuses people is the jump ball procedure.
Right, and the NBA does it differently from NCAA and FIBA.
So in college and international games, they still use the jump ball a lot,
Yeah, to start the game. Or if there's a held ball.
but the NBA mostly uses the possession arrow now.
Right, they do a jump ball to start the game, but after that, if there's another jump ball situation, they just give the ball to whoever didn't get it on the first jump ball.
Okay, so the possession arrow keeps track of that.
Exactly.
Interesting. And lastly, there's the kicked ball rule, which the script says isn't always a violation.
Right, it depends on whether the ref thinks it was intentional.
So if you kick the ball on purpose, it's a violation.
Yeah, but if it's accidental, like the ball bounces off your foot while you're running, it might not be called.
The ref has to decide if you were trying to kick it or if it's just bad luck.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of rules, some complex accusations, but the script also has a fun section about weird rules and trivia.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
First up, is basket interference a rule that seems like it could lead to some strange moments?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like imagine someone swatting a ball that's clearly about to roll off the rim. That's basket interference.
So you can't touch the ball when it's in that cylinder above the rim or when it's touching the rim.
Right, even if it looks like it's going out, if you touch it, it's a violation.
So if you're on offense and you do that, the basket doesn't count.
But if you're on defense and you do it, the other team automatically gets the points.
Wild. Okay, and this one is super specific to the NBA, the rule about jersey tucks.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this. They can actually fine players for untucked jerseys.
Seems a little much, right?
Well, the NBA is all about image, I guess, keeping things looking professional.
And for those who watch college basketball,
Yeah.
the NCAA has a rule about headbands.
Oh yeah, what's that one?
They have to be a solid color and no logos allowed.
Huh, interesting. I wonder why.
Probably to keep things uniform and not too distracting.
Makes sense. It's all about controlling those little details.
Okay, now, for some did you know facts, the script mentions that in the NBA, 2 technical fouls mean you're ejected from the game.
Yeah, gotta keep those tempers in check.
No arguing with the refs too much. And here's a difference between the NBA and FIBA.
Lay it on me.
In FIBA, once the ball hits the rim, you can touch it.
Really? So goaltending rules are different.
Yeah, in the NBA, you can't touch it until it either goes in or bounces off the rim. But in FIBA, you can go for it once it hits the rim.
Wow, that could lead to some crazy plays at the basket.
For sure. And lastly, for our NCAA fans, there's the 1-and-1 bonus free throw rule.
Oh yeah, explain that one.
Okay, so once a team has 7 to 9 fouls and a half, if they foul again, the player gets 1 free throw. If they make it, they get another one. If they miss it, the ball is live.
Okay, and once a team has 10 or more fouls and a half.
Then it's 2 free throws every time, no matter what.
Got it. That can really change how teams play defense late in games.
Totally. Well, we've covered a ton of ground here from the basics of scoring all the way to these really specific and sometimes odd rules,
Yeah, and it's fascinating how these rules are a little different in each league.
which changes the way the game is played.
Absolutely, for sure. And it makes you think about how a coach would plan a game differently, knowing they have 24 seconds or 30 seconds on the shot clock.
Right, or how players might drive to the basket depending on how blocking and charging is called.
It's all connected. These rules really shape the sport.
So for our listeners, as you're watching a game now, think about how those rules are impacting what you're seeing.
Yeah, and I want you to ask yourself this. Which rule do you think has the biggest overall impact on how basketball is played?
Because even a seemingly small rule change can have a huge effect.
Right. It's all about understanding the nuances and how they shape this amazing game.
It's more than just putting the ball in the hoop.
Way more.